this morning was to blend in a little bit with Thich Nhat Hanh. On Monday, there was this announcement that went around the social media that he's dying, that he's passing away. And then shortly after that came a second message directly from Plum Village that he's had quite a strong brain hemorrhage, and that he seems to be, there's a good chance that he will heal, and that he has movement of his hands and feet, and is aware. For me, he's always been there in a way that was almost taken for granted. And with this shock, I don't know how it works exactly, but in me something collapsed in terms of a border, or a habitual kind of border called taking for granted, which was there into his energy, to his life. The death kind of does that when it comes forward as a possibility. And it seemed possible to really collapse all layers of separate selfhood into this incredible shared awareness, the pure mindfulness, with such a rational, obvious presence of the need to let ourselves go, to move as one with kindness and peace, that I spent really a night really in this kind of expanded, shared awareness where really, like Rumi says, the word other lost its meaning. And his teaching and his life, a lot of things became very, very clear to me. One thing became very clear was how utterly vulgar I am, in a way. Not as a condemnation or that anyone was judging or anything, but I saw what had to fall off to move into that space. And even, there's a kind of whiplash of a little bit of ego. Oh, look at me, I'm moving into that space. I saw really the vulgarity of it, but at the same time, the importance of anyway moving outwards, because it's an entry point, maybe to him, to what he stood for his whole life, with such simplicity. That each one, no matter where they are, by being of service, is creating a movement, which is an entry point of letting all of those places where we're not free, and a lot of those places are those places which are between us and others, letting it fall down. What separates me from anyone else. So entry points seem to be really, really important, and none of us is perfect. Also, his awareness has something essentially him about it. Even though it seems to be encircling the planet, it's still almost more him. It's as if the planet became Thich Nhat Hanh, in a way, on one layer. But without any power struggle, without anything except this beautiful dedication to be of service to the whole, to move out of the dream that we need to destroy, that we need to fight against, that we need to not be free, that we need to be enclosed in a separate self. So that was the first thing that came forward. How much more work there is to be done, in the sense of just letting so much of this layers of it's not even mental self. Like in our minds, we can know that we're all interconnected and that there's a unity. But it's like in the unconscious, these unconscious kind of walls. So there's work to be done, which I like, because there's also a curiosity and a learning in that, and it's a good feeling to be humbled, for me, and I think for most people. You have a big movement in spirituality, and immediately the next thing is what a dumb donkey I am. It's one of the first imprints of such a movement, that you see how small you've kept yourself. And I don't mean that in a sense of ego, I really mean that in a sense of stupidity. The second thing, apart from the kind of egoic reflection on my own imperfectness, is that I would send any student I have, or any friend, or any relative, or any loved one, without a question to this man. Mm-hmm. I would trust him absolutely. There is such a purity that I wouldn't fear for a moment that they would come out broken, or that it wouldn't be in their highest interests. And that's quite to not even have one hook, one doubt, that's quite a lot. And the third thing, which is really connected, is the pure simplicity of his messages. There's so little mind involved, there's so little entanglement. You know, when we talk about interbeing, we really go into the depths of the psychology of it and the way it plays out between us, and we give 1,000 different examples, as if we have to go to all of these mental gymnastics to make something clear. When he talks about interbeing, he talks about a glass of water. And that's it. When somebody asked him about Jesus walking on the water, he said that for him, the real miracle is walking on the ground. Pure simplicity of awakeness with no hooks at all. No fireworks, nothing, but I would trust him with my own baby. I would trust him because it's so pure and unentangled. So part of his work, and where he's really created a dramatic change which is still going on in the world, is mindfulness. And he was the first to speak out when he saw that mindfulness was getting taken to a place of, mindfulness for successful business, mindfulness to get a bigger house, mindfulness to be the best and get more. But he didn't criticize it in the way of this is not what the holy teaching is about, not at all. He criticized it in a way that this isn't going to bring you to freedom. This is not in the best interests of you, which is totally in support of people as opposed to judging against them. And from a level of concern, because maybe if they think that this is mindfulness and then it doesn't bring them what they're really wanting, then they'll trash mindfulness altogether, because it's the same word. And so for him, mindfulness is really, really simply put, conscious breathing. And that sounds like, so, okay, so what then? Conscious breathing. It's like empty. It's not bringing anything. What can it bring? It immediately that you say conscious breathing, it's kind of like, there's nothing in this for me. It's boring beyond belief. And in that he hits immediately one of the main attitudes why we're not awake. If breathing is boring and doesn't take you anywhere, then how is it possible to live at all? To really live? If the most basic principle of being physically alive is not enough, then how can anything be enough? So I was looking into the breathing, and what happened in the night was almost a synchronized breathing. It must be with the other Plum Village people it was as if I could hear my breath amplified. The in-breath, the out-breath, kind of surprising. Because for me, when I start to consciously breathe, one of the first things I get is a kind of self-consciousness. Like when you suddenly become conscious in the now, there's a whiplash of self-consciousness. which is a kind of resistance to breathing. The breathing becomes unnatural. As if it's really an effort. And then it's much easier to go into the head and let the breathing happen by itself. This we can take for granted. So that seems to be really, really, really important in terms of coming into the here and now, this layer of self-consciousness, almost alienation, like a split created between me, the conceptual one, and me, the one in a physical body. As if that split could be what it's about, escaping to one side of the split. But at the same time, it becomes so clear that with every breath, there is such a preciousness. It's the first thing we do when we come into physical life. The first thing is an in-breath.
And the last thing.
And the last thing is an out-breath. It's not happening in the womb. It's not happening when awareness maybe is leaving the body after that. He also said something which is really important, which is that enlightenment can only happen in the body. This also shocked me into the understanding or the reflection that something in me is still waiting until after I'm dead. It's like this death drive that, the real culmination will be when I'm free of this breathing life thing. Later. Like later that never comes. Tomorrow that will never come. And at the same time, this saying that enlightenment can only happen in a physical body really gives an opening to our purpose here. It's not something to be wasted away, or dreamt away, or thought away in what we want tomorrow or what was. It's really the second by second breathing. And then we come back to the breathing. When we breathe consciously, what we're doing is contacting the air which moves through our whole body with consciousness. Something's happening there. If you look at the whole of creation, where consciousness meets the particles, the fundamental particles of oxygen, or whatever chemical particles, hydrogen, there's an effect. There's really an effect. So when we're breathing unconsciously, our unconscious is affecting those particles. When we're breathing consciously, in a position where consciousness is not invested only in thoughts, we're having another effect on the physical. And it's not just the oxygen is taken to the lungs. It's absorbed into the blood. So it's now in the water, in the whole bloodstream, through the heart. It's absorbed into the cells. The cells are inseparable from the cells of the earth that we're standing on. The whole movement is in perfect interbeing and synergy with the trees and with life and with the planet. It's not a tiny thing to bring consciousness to breathing. It's having, just that is having an effect. And one of the effects it has is it makes more natural the breathing itself consciously. It slows everything down. It makes us much more physically alive. It means that our ability to trash, and I mean trash in the sense of fall asleep to the miracle of being here, is vastly diminished, but it also confronts. Because there are reasons why we don't consciously breathe in a natural way. Mm-hmm. So those reasons come forward. Mm-hmm. So there's an incredible wisdom in this mindfulness. If somebody is had a shock, half your family was just killed, and then they're shocked, the first thing you say to them is breathe, breathe. If somebody's giving birth, you tell the mother to breathe. If somebody's in incredible pain, you bring their attention in the ambulance to the breathing. Why? Is this the first medical need? It's really not. But what this does, when you bring your attention to the breathing, is that whatever else is happening is not absolute anymore. It's not the only thing. So your leg can be amputated and the blood rushing out, and you could get caught in that. But if you're also breathing, you are more than that. There's also a whole conscious entity of life which you're part of, which makes the pain or suffering less. It doesn't become like the determining thing. And in a time of shock, this is critical. In order to have the freedom to move through it, or to be with it. It's the same on the thoughts. There is no mind, the pure mindful teaching of mindfulness doesn't say stop thinking. No, you shouldn't have a busy mind. The thoughts are happening, but you also have the breathing. Which means that the ability for the thoughts to lead you into a whole story about what happened 10 years ago in Bolivia is much less, because also you're breathing, and it just doesn't stick anymore in the same way. It's not even that interesting, because also you're breathing, and in also breathing there's kind of like, wow, I'm here. I'm not 10 years ago in Bolivia, and it doesn't say anything about me. It's the same on the level of awareness. When we get a really strong rejection, sometimes, this kind of emotional pains, when people really hurt you and you say, it's a knife in my heart, this registers exactly in the same area of the brain, it lights up as if you actually had a knife in your heart. It's pure pain. It's totally underrated by our society, but it's registering with that degree of felt sensation. Pain, just an emotional, a wound that cuts deep, close to where you are coming into form. Breathing, again, not around it or to the side of it or in order to get rid of it, but breathing directly through it, because anyway you're breathing, no matter how hurt we are, we're anyway breathing, has the same effect, but also the breathing is happening. Of course, Thich Nhat Hanh was an amazing poet, and this poetry came out of this, because there's so much more happening also when we're breathing. We're attuning in a way beyond the mind, beyond the body, to a whole rhythm. Always being born, always dying, always being born. Which is also there, no matter how much our person is wounded. Which means that we are able to allow the pain much more, because it's not actually going to kill us. And in allowing the pain begins to become more clear with the breathing, that it's actually not anything to do with us. This pain. Sometimes it takes time, and there's a need for a lot of gentleness, but it's not. It's part of our service of being here physically as breathing sentient human beings. It's there. But it's not in any way meaning that it's possible to exist independently of the pain. It's just pain. We're also breathing. We're also alive. And we're alive in a way which is anything which the pain is, that which is responding and creating the pain, the thing which has been hit emotionally, isn't that important anymore. It's part of my ego. I was rejected for something. But am I that something that hurts so much? Am I that one that could be rejected? Am I this one that screams in agony because it was attacked? When you're breathing, you're not this one anymore. You're not this one that could be rejected. Rejection itself, and I just take the example of rejection, is not actually possible. It's as if it would be like saying that when I breathe out, the trees reject the movement to breathe in what I'm breathing out. It's not real. It's not as real. And it can hurt like hell, but just that movement of making it relative, this is not the deepest reality, creates such a healing possibility in the end, because often these emotional wounds involve other people. It's also directly healing that enemy which rejected us. Because we can't move into that relative position of also breathing and seeing that we are much more than this wound to the person without also meeting it in them. They're much more than their action of rejection. It's not them. They didn't reject me at all. Something else is happening. Something's happening between, but it's not who they are either. So there's an incredible possibility for peace coming forward when you can make that connection. It's like you see them as yourself. And between you is this suffering. It doesn't matter who started it and who this, like the kids, he started it and he did it, like the Middle East.
Kids, yeah. We get to a kid, it's happening right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of this, and he could give 1,000 words to it, and he would say it probably in 6 words. It seems to be what's happening in a kind of big shared awakening right now, because of his illness, because he's not well. So, because there is this gift, the gift in all that happened in relation to Thich Nhat Hanh in the past 2 days, it seems really worthwhile in the meditation to move into that, to try and let ourselves collapse a little bit, get out of the way of ourselves and to say yes to that in whatever form.
And when you say yes to that, what is the that?
This, to focus on him and to feel what he awakens in ourselves, and to surrender whatever's in between, wherever there's a border, to move into the interbeing which is there, the conscious interbeing. Interbeing is there all the time, we're all interdependent and interconnected, but it's like breathing. Breathing's there all the time. But being conscious and interbeing is a whole evolution.
He introduced that to me.
He introduced the whole word.
Right. No, I don't know about the whole world, but I know that my first time sitting with him in Israel, he speaks that poem that he is the pirate that rapes the 12-year-old girl. First he is the 12-year-old girl that is raped, and then he is the pirate who raped. And when I first heard him say that, I couldn't even grasp that, but because I knew it wasn't just poetry, it was a little experience. But that has stuck with me, other than walking meditation and letting your liver smile, things like that. That was his biggest impact on me. And it's very apropos for me now anyway. So talk about, we're not just the person who got rejected, so to speak, we're also the person who rejects, quote unquote. So talk about him acknowledging that he is also that which raped, you're looking at Thich Nhat Hanh and the idea that he would, it's not him, of course, but raped the 12-year-old, it was early in my evolution, and it really...
But it showed you exactly what...
It showed me exactly. I mean, it stuck with me. This was 15 years ago or something. That's what stuck with me. Other than doing walking meditation all the time.
And this is what really makes him a master of compassion. Not the teaching, not the background, not the Zen. It's really that he could write that poem.
And that was a long time.
Regardless of what anybody would say or think or this or that, just unconditionally to share where he wrote that poem partly because he felt his compassion closed down with this story of the pirate which actually happened.
Yeah, I know that.
So he had work to be done. So in that sense he's very much like us. I feel myself vulgar in his energy. So there's work to be done with compassion. So in a way this is a compassion meditation. And simple. So the first stage is to become conscious of the breathing on the vertical, breathing down really to the basis of the body and breathing out. And it's nice to add a touch of him here with the out breath to smile. Inwardly, outwardly, but to let the out breath be with a smile. So, and to breathe like this for 5-10 minutes. Then we can add to it And we can do this energetically, we don't have to do it physically, but to energetically add the movement from the basics, that with the in-breath it goes up like this, to really infinity above the head, and with the out-breath with a smile down again. It's beautiful to do it physically, but to do it energetically is also very, very, very good, because it's making us aware more of, when we're breathing, we're often closed down to like, okay, I'm breathing, and the energy is like this. But if you, with your feeling sense, make this movement, you're already aware of the expansion. And then the next stage is to do the same thing energetically, to breathe in, and to breathe in like this, in a circle around ourselves, and to breathe out with a smile down the center, again, for a while. Then, when we feel, and of course we can use his face or whatever, because I think this really helps to open the blend in a way, with this huge pool of energy, which is healing also for him, because it's what his whole passion and life is about. Then we can move to the first depression point, to the sternum, and to access the space there, which is really behind time, timelessness. Like the bone at the bottom, where the ribs meet at the bottom, and to kind of contemplate ourselves to be timeless. And it's much easier here than in the head, because past, present, future, it's just the feeling of I'm here, and there is no past and future. I'm here. And then to breathe on the horizontal. To take in whatever's around your whole field of interbeing, to breathe it all in, without getting hooked with any particular feeling. Try and be the same if it's a feeling of pain or depression, or if it's a feeling of joy and ecstasy, to receive it all like it's a whole population, unconditionally, knowing that what you're receiving it into is infinite on the other side as well, and to breathe out again with a smile. Sometimes we might get flashes of what's needed, but try not to identify with it and just breathe out with whatever's needed on the horizontal. And of course we don't need to do it like the whole structure, we can just find whatever means to move into the places where this teacher has opened things for us. Om.